All right, so let us talk about the Analog Four Mark II. And I found a really interesting and intuitive way of combining sequencers. So I'm using the Oxy 1 right here, big surprise. If you have another sequencer that is higher quality than an elektron sequencer, which is pretty hard to find, in my opinion, there's like a top three, the Oxy 1, the Torso T1, as well as the Hapax Scorp. Those three will sort of get you into territories that elektron sequencers do not. And so they are great to use in combination with elektron sequencers. Before diving in though, a few ways of supporting this channel and supporting what I do in general. I invite you to check out my Discord, which has become a very active synth-related forum or server. It really has become a nice community in the past few months. We're all well behaved and we discuss things like the topics in this video, other videos as well, just gear in general. And if you'd like to show some extra support, I now have a growing Patreon, which is becoming more and more loaded with exclusive content. Just a few ways of joining the community and supporting what it is that I do, keeping this train running. So thank you everyone who has been a supporter. As I mentioned, I'm a new Analog Four Mark II user, and so I feel that it is my duty to at least give you my first impressions of the instrument. I, of course, realize that I am very late to the party. I think this thing was released 7, maybe almost 8 years ago. It's very possible that you've already heard enough first takes, in which case you could just skip this part of the video. I will say that so far before picking up the unit, I had seen some other people use it and I liked the way it sounded. I liked the way that they made it sound. So I know that it has the potential of sounding the way that I want it to sound. It's just getting there. So far has been a little bit of a challenge. Maybe I just haven't spent enough time with it. That's my first impression. You sort of have to work the sounds, or maybe, you know, purchase or download like a free preset pack. Elektron has a bunch of those. I do find that even though this is an analog synthesizer, a lot of the presets sound pretty similar to the Digitone, or I guess the Digitone 2 at this point. So pretty FM-y sounding. What I do like about it, and this is something that has become very important moving forward for pretty much anything that I purchase, it has individual outs. A bunch of people already asked me, like, why didn't you invest in the cheaper and newer units, like maybe the Syntact or the Digitone 2? And in this point in my process, that's the answer. It's because this has individual outs and the Elektron boxes do not. It sort of opens you up to having to buy a lot more hardware. But in terms of a production setting with something like the SSL Big 6, I could just route this into my individual outs here. This is straight into my DAW. So that just means that there's a lot more of a live feel, but at the same time, the flexibility of just bouncing it directly into your DAW, which is of course great for music production. It could be great for maybe releasing a sample pack, hint, hint, Techno Starters Volume 1. That's how I made the entire pack with the analog rhythm and the SSL Big 6. On top of the individual outs, we of course have an elektron sequencer. So let's not take that for granted. How have I found a sort of fresh way of using the Analog 4 in combination with an external sequencer? The Analog 4 does have a keyboard, which is really useful for entering in notes or plugging in notes, or maybe even performing in notes if you'd like. It's obviously not quite the same as maybe using like an external MIDI keyboard or using your favorite sequencer. In this case, Oxy 1's matricial mode, which is really good for suggesting melodies, just like kind of throwing out melodies. This is a strength that the Oxy 1 has, which is kind of lacking with the Analog 4. And here's a more in-depth video on Oxy 1's matricial sequencer if you'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that. I'm just gonna very quickly come up with some sort of melody. I'm just changing all these different parameters here. Change the scale over to, let's say, pentatonic minor. Why not? Might be good to have a kick over top of this just so we know where the tempo is. I could even change the gate information here. Let's do that. Play around with the notes. At this point, this is a 100% generative pattern. It's just all the parameters are bouncing off of each other and into infinity. So what we could do is change the length of this pattern. We'll change it to 32 steps, which is like a 2-bar pattern. Let's try this again. So now, after every 32 steps, all the parameters will restart, which sort of creates more of a melody. In this case, can you call it a melody? I don't know. Let's add some more notes in here. Maybe add some randomization in here. Retrigger, so it's like that sort of ratchety sort of thing. Already really cool. Bring this delay down. This is actually a delay coming from my DAW, as well as some reverb. So there's a lot going on here, which makes it sound good. Okay, cool. So I'm happy with this melody. I would never have been able to come up with what I just did on the Analog 4 or on any other Elektron sequencer, which again, this demonstrates that there's a strength that the Oxy One, especially matricial mode, has that the Analog 4 just does not. Right now, the Oxy One is the clock. It's sort of the brain of this little operation going on here, but it doesn't have to be. We could, of course, bypass that if I just hit play here. And what I'm going to do now, make sure I'm on the right track, which is track 2. 1, 2, 3, go. I'm going to record that in. 2, 3, stop. So let's hit play. It's been played in. So why am I doing this though? Again, it comes down to the strengths and weaknesses between these two units. This is great for coming up with melodies, whereas the Elektron sequencer is infinitely better at going into steps and changing step parameters because, of course, it's a sequencer that's integrated into itself, and we could add very specific parameters from each of these pages on a per step basis. This, of course, isn't something that's accessible if the notes are being played from an external sequencer. They're kind of just like floating through the Analog Rhythms sequencer, but they're not really there in a way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to mute this kick track and have my drums play from my DAW into the SSL-B6. All these drums that you're hearing here, these are multi-track bass samples from my latest sample pack, Techno Stars Volume 1. I'm super proud of this sample pack, so go check it out if you like sounds like this, or maybe like this. There's obviously a lot going on with these notes, so what we could do is go over to trig conditions, and we're gonna change the amount of times that some of these notes play. I'm just gonna quickly do that. So whether or not you like that, that makes the pattern a lot more sparse. It leaves a bit more space for maybe another voice that we want to add into here. Let's do the same thing on a per step basis, but with the filters. So let's go ahead and do that. Maybe close the filter on some of these. So now we have this sort of like synthy modulated sound that's starting to happen that I really like, and I think that it really fits into this genre. I think that we do definitely have some extra space for another melody or like another texture similar to this one. I might actually even use the same, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. It's actually the same preset, whatever sound I've got going here, growler. So here, I'll take a second to come up with something on the Oxy One.
3 hours later.
So this is the secondary melody. Let's just mute the first voice here. Love it. Maybe add some delay to it through my mixer. So same thing as before, just gonna hit record. 1, 2, ready to go. Record this in. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. So I've stopped it, and now it's been recorded into the Analog 4. I already have an idea of what I'm gonna change here. So that's the first pass. The second pass, I'm gonna bring the filter down on these two. If you know, you know, I have a tendency to get pretty percussive with all of my parts. Even though it's the Analog 4, it's like I guess a bit more of a melodic instrument. I tend to go percussive and drummy. It's who I am, just accept me for who I am. I threw in some more samples from the pack. What does that sound like all together now? Sounds great. And that is my first impression of the Analog 4. Just moody for days. And that is definitely how I'll be using it in the future, possibly with this combination. This is like maybe my new favorite combo. So there's what's up. That's also a lot of information. Let's talk about today's sponsor now, DistroKid. If you are a hobbyist and you create music like this and you're looking for a way to distribute it to all major streaming platforms, DistroKid is definitely the most affordable way to go. They're truly designed for independent artists and producers like myself and possibly you. Here's a few reasons why they're awesome. In terms of what's new, they recently released a smartphone app, which makes checking your important DistroKid stats easy and accessible. The app is now available on Android through the Play Store. Essentially everything that you've been able to do on the DistroKid desktop app, you're now able to do through your smartphone. In today's day and age, we all know how many hats we have to wear as artists and producers. It can just be a lot, so write the music, produce the music. Then you've got to create content to promote it a few weeks before it's released. Then you've got to continue creating content after it's been released to promote it. It's a lot, and I'm not saying that DistroKid does all of this work for you, but they do make it a lot easier for us with the free promotional tools that they offer. The one I use most is Hyperfollow. It's essentially a free landing page or link tree. It's super clean. You could link maybe your latest video, your latest single, other important links you'd like to lead people to. I also use promo cards whenever I release a single. Just select the single that you would like to promote and it'll auto-generate a few different options for you to choose from. Go with DistroKid. It's just over $20 a year to release unlimited music to all major streaming platforms. You keep 100% of your streaming royalties. So many other tools that they offer for someone who's independent. They're made for us. And there is a discount linked in the description of this video if you would like to join. That's it for today. Hopefully this inspires some ideas with whatever gear that you're using. And of course, any questions or comments, please do let me know in the comment section of this video. I will be getting back to you. The best way to have a conversation though is definitely over on my Discord. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one.